Disease takes millions every year. Many deaths are premature and preventable, the source of much suffering. So-called natural disasters may take hundreds and thousands, destroying their property in storms and floods. Earthquakes have deadly consequences, may take a few to hundreds of thousands, destroying their property, all of which is preventable. Tsunamis may take hundreds of thousands in a single day, eliminating entire cities, again, all of which is preventable. But nothing compares to what we do to each other. With industrial efficiency, tens of millions have died at the hands of others, with many more tens of millions suffering catastrophic injury and destruction of their property. This documentary shows the path to authoritarianism, or how I stopped worrying and learned to love my dictator. One should respect public opinion, insofar as it is necessary to avoid starvation and keep out of prison. But anything that goes beyond this is voluntary submission to an unnecessary tyranny. Bertrand Russell. The fundamental cause of the trouble is that in the modern world, the stupid are cocksure, while the intelligent are full of doubt. Bertrand Russell. In his 1994 book, Pale Blue Dot, Carl Sagan comments, "Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel, which is Earth. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds." In his YouTube video, Star Talk, March 13th, 2026, titled A Scientist's View of War, Neil deGrasse Tyson explains, "Ever since we've recorded the history of human conduct in what we call civilization, and even before, there have been people who didn't get along on a level where it wasn't simply a matter of, let's talk over our differences. It's, we cannot resolve our differences, so therefore I must kill you." This is a mode of operation within our species. Within civilization itself, it's disturbing. How to recognize an authoritarian, otherwise known as a dictator, through the Dictator's Playbook. In this documentary, the capitalized word state refers to the nebulous totality of government, sometimes called the deep state, operated by the dictator, not to mean a place called a state like in the United States. People's names will be used sparingly. Most people's identity will be left to memory. Mussolini in the 1920s elevated the term fascism, which may also be referred to as authoritarianism. While names may not be mentioned herein, the identity of dictators, past and present, are easily guessed. This documentary is embellished and excerpted from a YouTube video authored by Professor Ruth Ben-Ghiat, titled, I Study Authoritarianism. The authoritarian state is enunciated through fascism, a one-party state, an all-powerful dictator at its head, no separation of powers, no independent judiciary, total state control, takeover, and ownership of media, commerce, and trade. The dictator's playbook strategy: attack, 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 attack. Apply ruthless aggression without mercy. Never admit fault. Never admit defeat. Always claim victory. Never humble yourself. Never admit a mistake. Manipulate, that is, lie, to the media. Admit nothing. Deny everything. Lie. The never apologize rule. Admitting wrongdoing is a fatal sign of weakness. Instead, turn the tables on accusers, naming any challenge a witch hunt. Apply offensive legal tactics. Rather than merely defending, apply outrageous countersuits to exhaust opponents, using the legal system as a weapon to harass and intimidate. Manipulate the media. Perception dictates reality. Utilizing the media to spread false narratives. Cultivate infamy and distract from the facts. Project power regardless of the situation. Even when facing humiliating defeat, maintain a persona of being in total control, ensuring the appearance of being a winner. A dictator is someone who seeks absolute power, does not want their actions and authority to be checked by any institution, proceeds to take those institutions apart, demands loyalty oaths, removes, fires, or disappears all people who are not loyalists, creates the state in their own image, makes everything about themselves. Dictators do anything to preserve their power. They are narcissists caring only about themselves, are often charismatic, may be very good performers, that's an actor, are often good orators. The dictator is connecting with the people even more now with social media. Usually heard speaking plain, almost infantile-like, characterized by failed enterprises claiming to be successful. The so-called man of the people, the man above all other men, the man who is untouchable, the man who is like a god, the man who erects absurdly huge statues of themselves, the man who puts his name on buildings, the man who drapes giant photographs of himself on government buildings, the man who claims fake accomplishments, the man who concocts rituals around himself, the man who publishes fake autobiographical books written by a ghostwriter, the man who is consistently inescapable, announcements, pressers on all channels, tweet storms, etc., etc. A dictator must always get his way, doesn't care about public welfare, is very corrupt, steals from the people, and manipulates the people through propaganda. A stream of consciousness follows, characterizing the dictator and the authoritarian state. Authoritarianism is a political system that often is a dictatorship. The word dictator comes from the verb to dictate. No more trade unions except state unions. Employers and employees are in the same state union. Fascist expansionism is characterized by classical imperialism and the conquest of territory. There is no fascism without violence. Dictators use violence to change the world in their favor. The fascist state organizes itself around the practice and application of violence. A significant characteristic of the dictator is to declare a category, class, religion, race, or national origin of people as the enemy, threatening and enforcing deportation or even extermination through violence by the state's apparatus. Military, police, secret police, anonymous masked enforcers, death squads, assassins, paid agitators, and death camps. Regular people, constituents, are trained, praised, and rewarded from an early age, on TV, in school, in church, to become vigilant informers. This idea of the dictator being the man everyone should look up to goes back to the fascist years of the 1930s. Dictators, as authoritarians, pose as the macho man, projecting a real man should be able to have anyone and anything he wants without asking for consent. Dictators do not allow separation of powers. Like in a democracy, in the United States of America's three branches of government, organized by the Constitution. This is where executive power overwhelms the state and the people. No dictator is benevolent. The definition of a dictator is someone who represses popular will. There is no voting in a classic dictatorship. There is no free press. If you are an opponent of the regime, you and your family will be jailed, killed, or disappeared. Today, softer oppression comes from outrageous and frivolous lawsuits. All this is not benevolence. The dictator will engage in political threats to friendly and opposing party members at the slightest hint of dissent. Sometimes these threats are unwarranted, just to impress in the electorate their power to quiet any rumblings of dissent. Autocracy is another name for the political system of authoritarianism, where the leader does their best to stay in power no matter what the people or the electorate thinks or desires. Dictators may use some of the authoritarian playbook while running for and winning office, building up power and influence at every opportunity, while discrediting journalists who check their abuse, proclaiming them fake news, calling them vermin, farm animals, or communists. If evidence of the future dictator's corruption or their violent acts are reported, the dictator needs the public to disbelieve the press, to believe the press is lying, declaring the press as the enemy of the people, So there is no other voice telling the truth. The truth is gone by design. As a dictator, power is maintained by creating and cultivating an atmosphere of terror, intimidation, and physical violence against enemies of the state. These enemies are designated by the dictator. Currently a new thing, organized harassment using and abusing the courts with a fire hose of frivolous lawsuits, smear campaigns, ridicule, and hit pieces in the press, and platforming false, ruinous accusations with the goal to force self-censorship. Fascist dictatorships and communist dictatorships have many things in common. An all-powerful leader at the head of a personality cult using propaganda. Fascists go after leftists. Fascist dictatorships are anti-communist. The behavior of personality cults, comprised of the dictator's followers, has not changed for over a century. Personality cults are easily recognized as groups led by a self-proclaimed or widely proclaimed prophet, charismatic leader, religious preacher, or popular celebrity who may be heard saying, "I speak to God," or "God told me, blah, 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 blah," or "I alone speak for my people, patriots, believers, etc., etc., etc." A recent example. Members proclaim they hear God speaking, saying things like, "God told me the dictator won the recent election." The cult leader uses phobia indoctrination, avoidance programming, authoritarian control, misdirection, pathological lying, and behavior, information, thought, and emotional control to create a pseudo-identity, smothering their followers' identity. The cult leaders, or their adjacent apostles, may be heard saying, "We have to do what God wants." Follow the cult leader or dictator into whatever. What is needed to break the hold of the dictator over the cult's followers is simple, one-on-one conversation where the followers are respectfully asked questions to invoke curiosity in their minds, hopefully leading them to think for themselves through the soft introduction of reliable information and evidence of the cult leaders or dictators' corruption, lies, and cult-like brainwashing. Cult followers suffer from a dissociative disorder, literally in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association as a disruption of identity. This disruption takes over the identity of the follower. Their previous identity is still there, but it is wrapped in a smothering blanket of the cult identity. What is needed for the cult victims to break free of the cult is a depolarizing off-ramp so they can exit their disordered thinking that is smothering their identity by talking to them with warm and friendly language without the victim raising feelings they are under attack. Remember how to talk with cult followers and members. Their real self is in there somewhere. Most followers have good values and believe they are going to help and save this or that country or party or even the world. Again, remember, the dictator and his cultism have projected onto cult members, isolating their minds in a blanket through information control, misdirection, behavior control, phobia indoctrination programming, shaming, and pathological lying. The dictator vocalizes false claims using loaded language like, "Trust me, I know more than anybody. Only I can fix it. You can't believe what you hear, see, or read. Fake news media is the enemy of the people. Don't believe any of that stuff about me. Are you still bringing that up? It would be a shame if something happened if you don't follow or believe me." This is mob boss speak. Often the cult follower will grow to believe they will be harmed spiritually and physically if they listen to or entertain any negative thoughts of the cult, thereby promoting self-monitoring. To be clear about the power of a dictator and his cult, which can be recognized by the vividness and tangibility of its imaginary enemies, like, left, right, Democrat, Republican, Communist, the devil, demons, Satan, etc. To the contrary, the real danger is the dictator and the cult. The claim that the dictator will protect you from your enemies, the enemies he delineates, is a lie, a tool to project fear. Historian Emilio Gentile defined fascism, a modern political phenomenon, revolutionary, anti-liberal, and anti-communist, organized in a militia party with a totalitarian conception of politics and the state, an activist and anti-theoretical ideology with a mythical, viralistic, and anti-hedonistic foundation, sacralized as a secular religion, which affirms the absolute primacy of the nation, understood as an ethnically homogeneous organic community, hierarchically organized in a corporate state, with a bellicose vocation to the politics of greatness, power, and conquest, aimed at creating a new order and a new civilization. While initially composed of distinctive movements, in the 21st century, many U.S. neo-Nazi groups have moved toward more decentralized organization and online social networks with a terroristic focus. In 2016, fascist groups began coalescing around right-wing populism to take advantage of it. In 2017, the Unite the Right rally saw marchers come together from a variety of far-right groups and movements, including members of the alt-right, neo-Confederates, neo-fascists, white nationalists, neo-Nazis, Klansmen, and far-right militias. Certainly, the following discussion of brainwashing techniques are not absolute. The techniques exist on a spectrum from non-existent to overwhelming. The term brainwashing was popularized in the West in the 1950s to describe methods used by the leftist Chinese Communist Party for forced ideological conversion. Studies of these methods, particularly involving North Korean prisoners of war, concluded that the techniques were less about mind control and more about coercive persuasion involving physical and psychological pressure applied relentlessly and continuously over long spans of time on captive prisoners. The core techniques as part of thought reform or totalism include, but not limited to, milieu control, the complete control of information and communication within an individual's environment, leading to isolation from the outside world. Confession. Individuals are forced to confess to real or imagined sins or faults, often publicly. These confessions serve as a powerful control device and are used by leaders to manipulate members. Demand for purity. The world is presented in a black and white, us versus them framework, encouraging members to conform to the group's ideology and strive for perfection. Sacred science. The group's doctrine is presented as the ultimate, unquestionable truth. Physical or psychic isolation. Disorganizing a person's habitual mental reactions through isolation, making them more suggestible to new ideas and values. Control over basic needs. Methods involved harsh conditions like food and sleep deprivation and solitary confinement, with better conditions offered as a reward for compliance. These techniques were often applied in group settings, such as re-education centers and prison camps, where the captives cannot leave, relying heavily on isolation and constant repetition of a limited set of ideas to suppress dissent and enforce conformity. Dictators abandon morality and will ally with the usual actors, henchmen, of low morals and insidious stupidity. The ends justify the means abbreviates the dictator's personality. Sometimes the main political opponent is killed or disappeared, often with their entire family. Dictators tend to be psychotically paranoid with sociopath tendencies. Dictators construct an inner sanctum, a circle of advisors, henchmen, often including family members and in-laws. There is a history of sons-in-law being given important positions. Isolated in a cocoon, dictators often believe their own delusional propaganda and stop making good decisions, known as the Howard Hughes effect. I said that I would not mention names. I will discuss Howard Hughes. Key aspects of the Howard Hughes effect, often discussed in psychology and pop culture academia, include and often are displayed in full or in part by dictators. Paradoxical hygiene, germ phobia. Despite an obsessive fear of germs, Hughes ironically neglected his personal hygiene, rarely bathing or cutting his nails in his later years. Isolation and control. Hughes ran his vast business empire, TWA, Hughes Aircraft, Howard Hughes Productions, remotely via memos and telephone, while hiding from the world in darkened hotel rooms, a result of deep paranoia and phobias. Perfectionism overload. His intense focus on detail drove success in filmmaking, like Hell's Angels, and aviation, but devolved into paralyzing obsession that ruined relationships and slowed business operations. The Spruce Goose Syndrome, the obsessive, often impractical pursuit of pioneering, costly, and at times non-functional projects, such as the H-4 Hercules. Mental health and addiction. Following multiple severe plane crashes, chronic pain led Hughes to long-term addiction to codeine, exacerbating his mental health decline. Carlo Coppola's 5 Laws of Stupidity, taken from his book, The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity, outline that stupid people are an underestimated, dangerous, and consistent force in society that causes harm to others without gaining anything themselves. They exist across all demographics. The 5 Laws of Stupidity. Number 1, underestimation. Everyone constantly underestimates the number of stupid individuals in circulation. Number 2, independence. The probability that a person is stupid is independent of any other characteristic, like education or profession. Number 3, the golden law. A stupid person is one who causes losses to another person or group while deriving no gain and potentially even incurring losses themselves. Number 4, underestimating potential. Non-stupid people always underestimate the damaging power of stupid individuals, often forgetting that associating with them is a costly mistake. Number 5, maximum danger. A stupid person is the most dangerous type of person, making them more dangerous than a bandit. Bandits act for personal gain. Dictators have giant egos, malignant narcissism, but are actually very insecure and may suffer stunted maturity, impotence, sexual and drug addiction, pedophilia, cranial parasites, dementia, brain abscesses, frontotemporal degradation, and primary progressive aphasia. Malignant narcissism is an extreme, highly destructive subtype of narcissistic personality disorder, combined with antisocial behavior, sadistic tendencies, and paranoia. It goes beyond standard narcissism by actively seeking to manipulate, harm, and dominate others, often taking pleasure in their distress. While not in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association diagnosis, malignant narcissism is considered by doctors of psychiatry and psychology to be a severe, toxic personality pattern. Erich Fromm coined malignant narcissism in 1964 as a severe, evil form of psychopathology combining extreme narcissism with paranoia, sadism, and antisocial behaviors. Fromm viewed it as a solipsistic state where individuals love themselves for inherent traits rather than achievements, leading to a dangerous detachment from reality, intense cruelty, and destructiveness. Key characteristics of malignant narcissism, as defined or influenced by Fromm, include sadism, enjoying the suffering or humiliation of others; antisocial behavior, lack of remorse, breaking rules, and lying; paranoia, deep distrust of others and believing they are a target personally; extreme grandiosity, an intense, inflexible belief in their own superiority; manipulation and control, using gaslighting and intimidation to maintain power. Key differences from other types of personality disorders. Versus narcissistic personality disorder. While NPD involves a need for admiration, malignant narcissists actively seek to destroy others. Versus psychopathy. It is often described as falling under the dark triad: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Behavioral patterns. They are often described as vindictive, hateful, and pathologically dishonest. Narcissistic personality disorders impact on others. Individuals dealing with a malignant narcissist often feel fearful, manipulated, and betrayed. Malignant narcissists are known to ruin relationships, create chaos, and feel no guilt for the emotional devastation they cause. Malignant narcissistic dictators actively keep terminal illnesses secret, since a terminal ailment is bound to provoke an uprising, either within the ranks of the essential coalition or among outsiders who see an opportunity to take control. Because rumors of impending disability and death often induce political death, spreading a rumor of terminal illness may help to remove a dictator from office. The dark triad is a psychological theory comprising three socially malevolent personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, that share characteristics like emotional coldness, duplicity, and selfishness. Individuals with these traits, which can overlap, are often manipulative, entitled, and lack empathy. They are linked to interpersonal problems and exploitation. Key components of the dark triad. Narcissism, defined by arrogance, entitlement, grandiosity, and superiority. Machiavellianism, involves manipulation, exploitation of others, a cynical disregard for morality, and a focus on self-interest. Psychopathy, characterized by enduring antisocial behavior, impulsivity, selfishness, callousness, and remorselessness. Behavior and characteristics. Individuals high in dark triad traits are prone to the following behaviors. Exploitative relationships. They tend to be manipulative, using deceit to get their way. Lack of empathy. They show a profound lack of concern for the welfare of others. Risk-taking. They are often impulsive and prone to dangerous, sometimes criminal behavior. Workplace issues. They may steal credit, lie, and provoke conflict in professional settings. Causes and treatment. While specific causes are complex and likely a mix of genetics and environment, research suggests that, while challenging, these traits can potentially be tempered by focusing on increasing a person's agreeableness. Interventions that promote kindness, modesty, and consideration have been shown to reduce dark triad behaviors, sometimes even in individuals who are not explicitly aiming to change. Diagnosis and assessment. The dark triad is not a clinical diagnosis found in the DSM-5. Rather, it is a personality construct measured through tools like the short, dark triad, SD3, a widely used self-report instrument developed by Delroy Paulus to assess subclinical levels of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, evaluating all three traits. The dark tetrad. Some researchers expand this concept into a dark tetrad, which includes sadism, the tendency to derive pleasure from the pain or humiliation of others. Dictators often publicly and in writing commit projection, a subconscious psychological defense mechanism where the individual attributes their own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, motives, traits, perversions, and criminality onto another person or group. By externalizing internal, unwanted, or negative emotions, the person projecting avoids confronting their negative emotions and misdeeds, often leading to skewed perception, strained relationships, and sometimes even overt criminality. Dictators may publicly accuse others of misbehaving when it is they who have done the misdeed. If the dictator's mouth is moving, they are lying, especially if they are habitually talking about someone else. Schoolboy bully monikers may be added to the name of someone under the dictator's projection attack. From the American Psychiatric Association Dictionary of Psychology. Key aspects of projection. Defense mechanism. It acts as a shield to protect the ego from anxiety, guilt, or unpleasant emotions. Unconscious process. The individual is often unaware that they are projecting, truly believing the externalized feelings originate from the other person. Mechanism of action. Similar to a projector, a person projects their internal, disowned experiences onto others. Purpose. It helps individuals avoid self-examination and responsibility for their own behavior or flaws. Examples of projection. Insecurity. Someone feeling insecure about their intelligence accuses others of thinking they are stupid. Anger. An angry person believes others are hostile toward them, saying, "They hate me," instead of, "I hate them." Infidelity and jealousy. An individual who is cheating may accuse their partner of infidelity. Bullying. A person struggling with their own self-esteem may project their weakness by bullying others. From Psychology Today, Sigmund Freud initially introduced the concept, defining it as a way to manage unacceptable impulses. Carl Jung expanded on this, suggesting projection is used to make sense of or provide order to unknown or fearful situations. Negative impact. Frequent use of projection can cause severe relationship issues, create hostile environments, fuel prejudice, result in victim blaming, and even be the prelude to war by the dictator. Individuals can come to power initially through elections and then devolve into a dictator. One very recognizable initiation of takeover by a dictator is the elimination of government oversight of treasury expenditures. Huge sums may be secretly diverted from traditional expenditures and applied to finance oppressive activities like financing anonymous policing, brown shirts, secret police, etc. Later, as the dictator gains power, diversion of treasury funds is no longer hidden, often with a financial czar, a secretary of the treasury, diverting the money. About 75% of authoritarian regimes in the 20th century were created through coup. A self-coup is a variety of coup, when the leader is already in office. The self-proclaimed dictator refuses to leave. It's very important to find perpetrators of self-coups accountable. Coups happen when people inside state institutions go rogue. When we think of traditional coups, often perpetrated by the military, well-armed, jackbooted soldiers do the job of closing government buildings, making sure that the actual government, the old government, they're trying to overthrow, can no longer get into offices to do their jobs. When elected and appointed officials are not allowed to enter into government buildings because someone, dressed to kill, is preventing them, who has not been elected or officially in charge of any government agency, that qualifies as a coup. Dictators may have abortion criminalized based on the fantasy notion of national purity, proclaiming the national virtue of the perfect race, promoting native-born white babies to combat the number of unwanted immigrant brown babies. The dictator may even claim that immigrants are criminals, illegally depending on state handouts and welfare money. Along with violent political opposition against journalists and LGBTQ people thrown off high roofs, women have been the enemy of the strongman by removing bodily autonomy from women's rights, rolling back or eliminating reproductive rights, denying women from voting, and disqualifying women from owning property, reducing women constituents to brood mares for the state. In some dictator states, women cannot have a bank account, driver's license, business license, own property, gain an educational degree, or even leave home without a husband, father, or brother escorting them. Many Americans have no idea what dictatorship entails, but have wrongly convinced themselves that democracy is failing them, and see dictators held up as superior role models. They have been conditioned by media to consent that autocratic dictators are superior leaders. People who already have authoritarian views of the world, white supremacists, Christian nationalists, neo-Nazis, extreme conservatives, right-wing nuts, may be seduced by a politician, religious leader, or celebrity claiming, "I am your strongman. I will decide things for you. I will improve your life. I will bring order to society. I will bring down prices. I will lower inflation. I will lower your taxes. I will send you a check. I will give you a great job. I will eliminate immigrants. I alone can fix it." And last but not least, I will end all wars. With dictators comes kleptocracy, a state of thieves. They skim money from commercial interests, industry, trade, and state agencies. Instead of working for the people, the dictator swindles the state to line the pockets of the dictator, his family, and his rich supporters. Today, the skim money goes less to numbered Swiss bank accounts or offshore banks, but to the new way to launder money, Bitcoin, also known as cryptocurrency. Dictators make money in an illegal fashion, which is why they use propaganda, violence, and repression to assure none of their swindles, cons, and grifts are exposed. Dictators expand government debt and cause massive waste and bloat in the process. Even when they cut the size of government through firings, it doesn't end well for the people. It can seem strange that people support dictators who take their rights away, because what dictators want you to do is betray people like you and me and the people in your community. The dictator sets up the state to encourage informants on other people, where you look the other way when your loved ones are taken away by the secret police. Dictators also want you to betray yourself, discard your moral compass, and self-censor. Dictators are very skilled at posing as saviors, imbued with special powers. Dictators create crises, like wars, or exploit crisis, international conflict, then claim they are personally the solution or the agent who stops wars. Whether it's economic crisis or the fake projection of social unrest, one of the classic dictator narratives for over a century has been, only the authoritarian is going to keep people safe against the threat of immigrants coming across the border. Dictators will claim immigrants are coming over the border to transport illegal drugs, illegally vote in elections, murder us, rape our women, take our jobs, dilute our population, and poison the blood of our country because they're the wrong skin color and the wrong faith. The same excuses for over a century are used to justify national purity campaigns. These are old narratives, and they work because they make people fearful for their security, for their family, and for their jobs. Then the dictator is heard to say, "I alone can fix it." U.S. presidents don't hold rallies. Dictators hold rallies. Authoritarians love adulation and the opportunity to perform. Rallies are an occasion where people attend in huge numbers to display their loyalty. What dictators care about more than anything is people showing loyalty to them on camera. Whether they are right or left, anti-colonial or imperialist, dictators all hold rallies. The dictator may be seen at the rally, standing shoulder to shoulder with pronominal social and cultural figures. Sometimes the dictator will align with well-known or significant religious leaders and may even wear the robes of a religious figure, especially during the rally. The internet is a double-edged tool built into free speech. It has allowed dissidents who are operating in repressive contexts to have new audiences they would never have had before the internet. The internet has allowed dictators to centralize and speed up the circulation of their propaganda. This goes back all the way to the beginning of authoritarianism. Smart dictators, savvy dictators, have always known how to take the latest media technology and use it to their advantage. The internet is a tool like other tools before it. However, the internet has the ability to hugely amplify the volume and circulation of propaganda, sometimes referred to as the echo chamber. Dictators may have elections, keep them going, but manipulate the system by control of the media, the judiciary, and the state's election apparatus to make sure the election goes the dictator's way. Dictators gain control over the electoral system. They hollow out the electoral institution so that everyone in it is loyal. These are things that go back to fascism, but today take place within a multi-party state. They rig the system through colonizing the media so the opposition's message can't get out. The existing dictator may put a prominent opponent under house arrest. This new system is called electoral autocracy. It holds elections but uses tricks to make sure elections are not free and fair, amassing enough power, holding elections, and then just refuse to recognize the results if the election is lost. Immigrants are not encouraged to have babies. Their children are denied citizenship. Another authoritarian continuity is homophobia. LGBTQ people get legislated bureaucratically out of existence, denied employment, jailed, or thrown off 15-story rooftops. That goes back to fascism. Anybody who does not fit the role of the natural family, one man, one woman, both straight, does not have a future in the dictator's state, or even a future being alive. Oligarchs help authoritarians come into power, but never fare well after the dictator has what he wants. Oligarchs are immensely wealthy and powerful individuals who can help to change the political environment by putting certain candidates in office either legally or illegally. One of the pillars of authoritarianism is what's called authoritarian bargains. These are deals that leaders make with powerful people. They could be oligarchs in the media area, in finance, in business, in industry. They might also be faith leaders. Some faith leaders are so powerful to be almost like oligarchs, who may team up or create cults or group movements behind them. The dictator needs these people to legitimate them, to tell the rest of the population because they're so influential that this guy is actually okay. He may be violent or crazy or a felony or a sexual predator or a con man, but he's our guy. The problem with this, inevitably, when the dictator has sensed the oligarch has outlived their usefulness, they will arrest, prosecute, jail, seize their assets, then have them killed. Many times, oligarchs flee the country and may have sequestered some of their assets outside the country. Dictators certainly want to be seen as being good for the nation, and many people become fans of the dictator because dictators promise many things, like improve infrastructure and may even accomplish improvements. Dictators have huge egos. They want to be identified with grandiose public works, especially if they are named in his honor. There may be a sense of modernity and things happening. The problem is, when you don't have a free press, no one can track with accurate statistics how these big public works are affecting the economy and what kind of corruption is happening behind the scenes. Huge public works projects are a common way for the dictator to skim treasury funds into their offshore or Bitcoin accounts, often granting no big contracts to their contributors, family, and friends. Dictators can attract huge support from people who fall for appearances. Look, he's doing things. Other people are not doing things. The dictator gets things done. However, it's only later that the economic, social outcome, and corruption in those huge projects comes to light. Often heard from the same people reveling in the dictator's accomplishments. How could this happen? We were so deceived. Dictators around the world are transactional. They use each other. If dictators are loving one another at the moment, it's because they think they can be allies, that they can get something from each other, or just one from another. Dictators using each other is what dictators know how to do well. Dictators blame media, opposition, foreign countries, terror groups, minorities, immigrants, and God for any and all crises. Dictators are expert at creating a sense of existential dread. It's not just polarization. It's that me or you and only one of us is going to survive thing they say. This is what racists everywhere do with non-white people. They create a sense of existential dread that this or that group or nation must be attacked, even sometimes removed from the face of the earth, for the dictator's country to have peace and safety. Often the enemy is another country, nation-state, or religion. There's a long history of dictators saying that their country has been victimized. These are very powerful narratives that can justify foreign invasion in the minds of their constituents. The dictator publicly broadcasts, "We've been victimized. It's time for us to protect ourselves by taking the perpetrator's territory."